The stars had never been kind to humanity. In the year 2847, humans were nothing special in the galaxy. They were the new ones, the small ones, the species that other races looked down upon. The Galactic Concord ruled everything. 12 ancient empires that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. They had power. They had weapons. They had technology that humans could only dream about. And they had no respect for. Earth. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the ESV Prometheus and looked out at the endless darkness of space. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too much disappointment. Behind her, 4,000 crew members worked at their stations. They were the best humanity had to offer. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, dreamers. All of them were about to do something that every other species called impossible. "Captain," said Commander Chun, her second in command, "we are approaching the Void Rift. 15 minutes until we cross the boundary." Elena nodded slowly. The Void Rift, a region of space that no ship had ever returned from. The Concord had sent probes. They had sent unmanned vessels. They had even sent prisoners on death sentences. Nothing ever came back. No signals. No wreckage. Nothing. The 12 empires had declared it forbidden. They said it was a natural phenomenon that destroyed anything that entered. They said only fools would go there. Humanity was about to prove them right or wrong. "All stations report ready," Chun continued. The crew was nervous but prepared. They believe in the mission. Elena turned to face him. "And you, Commander? Do you believe?" Chun was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "I believe in you, Captain. That is enough for me." On Throne Station, the political heart of the galaxy, the leaders of the 12 empires watched the human ship on their screens. Grand Admiral Vorath of the Kalari Empire laughed out loud. He was a massive creature with blue scales and 4 arms. His people had ruled their section of space for 10,000 years. "Look at them," he said to the others. "The humans actually think they will survive. How amusing." The Dravati Empress, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline body, flickered with amusement. "They are like children playing with fire. Perhaps this will teach them to know their place. If any of them survive to learn the lesson," added the Vorn Patriarch, his mechanical voice cold and emotionless. None of them considered helping the humans. None of them thought to warn them. They simply watched and waited for the entertainment of human failure. Back on the Prometheus, Elena addressed her crew one final time. Her voice carried through every corridor, every room, every heart on the ship. "My friends," she began, "in 10 minutes we will do what no one has done before. We will enter the Void Rift. The Concord thinks we are fools. They think humans are weak. They think we reach too far and dream too big." She paused and looked at the faces around her. Young and old. Scared and brave. All of them had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return. "Maybe they are right," Elena continued. "Maybe we do reach too far. But that is who we are. Humans have always looked at the impossible and said, 'Let us try.' We crossed oceans when others said we would fall off the edge of the world. We flew when others said humans were not meant for the sky. We reached the stars when others said space would kill us." Her voice grew stronger. "Today we reach again. Not for glory, not for power, but because the unknown calls to us and we cannot ignore that call. Whatever happens in the next hour, know this. I am proud to serve with every single one of you." The bridge erupted in applause. Even the most frightened crew members stood a little taller. 5 minutes later, the Prometheus crossed into the Void Rift. For a moment, nothing happened. The ship moved forward through darkness that seemed thicker than normal space. The stars disappeared behind them. Ahead, there was only emptiness. Then the alarm started. "Captain," Chun shouted over the noise. "We are detecting massive energy readings. The ship is being pulled forward. We have lost control of navigation." Elena gripped her chair as the Prometheus shook violently. Lights flickered. Crew members fell. On the screens, reality itself seemed to twist and bend. "All hands, brace for impact," Elena ordered. "Whatever happens, stay calm." "We are." Her words were cut off as a blinding light filled the bridge. Every person on the ship felt something impossible. Time stretched, compressed, folded in on itself. They saw colors that had no names. They heard sounds that existed before the universe was born. And then, silence. On Throne Station, the Concord leaders watched as the Prometheus's signal vanished from their screens. The blip that represented 4,000 human lives simply disappeared. Grand Admiral Vorath smiled. And so ends humanity's greatest ambition. A pity. They were almost interesting. The empires held a ceremony 3 days later. They called it the Acknowledgement of Extinction. It was their formal way of saying that humanity had failed and the matter was closed. No rescue missions would be sent. No investigations would be launched. The Prometheus was gone, and the galaxy would move on without caring. On Earth, the news arrived like a punch to the heart. Billions of people mourned. The Prometheus had carried their best hope for the future. Now that hope was gone. Monuments were built. Songs were written. Children were told stories about the brave crew that flew into the darkness and never returned. Years passed, decades, centuries. Humanity continued to exist, but something had changed. They had lost their fire. They stopped dreaming of impossible things. They accepted their place as a minor species in a galaxy that did not care about them. The Concord forgot about the Prometheus. It became a footnote in history books, a cautionary tale about the dangers of human ambition. The 12 empires continued their ancient games of politics and power, confident that nothing would ever challenge their rule. They were wrong, because deep in the void rift, beyond the edge of known reality, the Prometheus had not been destroyed. The crew had not died. They had found something. Something ancient. Something powerful. Something that would change everything. And in exactly 200 years, they would return. The galaxy was not ready. 200 years had passed since the Prometheus vanished. The galaxy had changed, but not by much. The Concord still ruled. The 12 empires still played their games of power. And humanity was still nothing special. They had a few dozen colony worlds. They had basic technology. They had a seat at some minor trade councils. But they had no voice, no power, no respect. The children of Earth had learned to accept their place. On a quiet morning, a young sensor operator named Talia worked at her station on the edge of Concord space. It was boring work. She watched screens all day, looking for ships, asteroids, or anything unusual. Nothing interesting ever happened. Until it did. Her screen flashed red. Then, every screen in the room flashed red. Alarms screamed. Warning lights spun. Talia jumped from her chair as readings flooded her display that made no sense. "What is happening?" shouted her supervisor, running into the room. Talia's voice shook as she answered. "Sir, there is an energy signature at the edge of the sector. It is massive. I have never seen anything like this. Every sensor array in the galaxy is detecting it at the same time." "That is impossible," the supervisor said. "I know, sir, but it is happening." Across the galaxy, on Throne Station, the Concord leaders gathered in emergency session. Grand Admiral Vorath, now much older but still powerful, stared at the tactical display with growing confusion. Something had appeared from nowhere. Something that broke every law of physics he knew. What is it? demanded the Dravati Empress. Is it a weapon? An attack? We do not know, Vorath admitted. We are sending a fleet to investigate. 200 of our finest warships. Whatever this thing is, we will be ready. The fleet launched within the hour. The most advanced vessels from 6 different empires, armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. They traveled at maximum speed toward the anomaly, expecting to find a natural phenomenon or perhaps an enemy they could destroy. They found neither. When the fleet arrived, every captain on every ship went silent. Before them, floating in the darkness of space, was a ship. It was massive, larger than anything they had ever built. Its hull shimmered with materials that their computers could not identify. It moved without engines. It glowed with energy that should not exist. And on its side, faded but still readable, were the words, ESV Prometheus. That is impossible, Vorath whispered. He was aboard his flagship, watching the human vessel through his viewing port. The Prometheus was destroyed 2 centuries ago. This must be a trick. Admiral, said one of his officers, we are scanning the ship. Its energy output is... Sir, it is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. And it does not appear to be trying. Vorath felt cold fear crawl up his spine. He had fought 1,000 battles. He had conquered worlds. He had never been afraid. Until now. Open communications, he ordered. Demand they identify themselves. The message went out. For long minutes, there was no response. The Prometheus simply floated there, silent and strange, like a ghost from humanity's past. Then Vorath made a decision he would regret. Fire warning shots, he commanded. Let them know we will not be ignored. A dozen ships launched energy beams at the space around the Prometheus. The weapons were not aimed at the hull, just close enough to show force. It was standard military procedure. What happened next was not standard at all. The energy beams curved. They bent away from the human ship as if pushed by an invisible hand. They did not explode. They did not dissipate. They simply went around the Prometheus and continued into empty. Spaced out every officer in the fleet. Stared at their screens in disbelief. How? Vorath could not finish the sentence. Then, a voice came through the communications channel. It was calm. It was clear. It was human. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the ESV Prometheus. We apologize for our delay. We have been away. We have learned many things. We wish to speak with the Galactic Concord. Please do not fire upon us again. We mean no harm, but we will protect ourselves if necessary. Vorath's scales turned pale. Elena Vasquez, the captain who had led the Prometheus into the Void Rift 200 years ago. She should be dead. Everyone on that ship should be dead. Even if they had somehow survived, they should be old beyond measure. But that voice sounded young, strong, alive. Captain Vasquez, Vorath replied carefully. You will understand if we find this situation difficult to believe. Your ship has been missing for 2 centuries. How is this possible? How are you still alive? Time works differently where we have been, Admiral. To us, it has been much longer than 200 years, and much shorter. I will explain everything to the Concord. But I must warn you of something first. What warning? The technology you were using to scan our ship. The weapons you fired. The engines that power your fleet. All of it is very old. Very primitive. We have moved beyond such things. Please understand that we do not say this to insult you. We say it so you will know. We are no longer the weak species you remember. We are something new. Vorath looked at his tactical officer. The young Kellari's hands were shaking. Admiral, the officer whispered, I have been analyzing their ship's capabilities. Based on what I can detect, They could destroy our entire fleet without taking any damage. They could do it in seconds. Lorath sat back in his command chair. For the first time in his long career, he did not know what to do. The humans had returned, but they were not the same humans who had left. "Captain Vasquez," he finally said, "the Concord will receive you. We will send an escort to Throne Station. But I must ask, why have you returned? What do you want?" There was a pause before Elena answered. When she spoke, her voice was kind but heavy with purpose. "We want to help, Admiral. We have seen what is coming for this galaxy, and if we do not work together, nothing will survive." The communication ended. The Prometheus began moving toward Throne Station, the Concord fleet following behind like confused children following a giant dot in his private quarters that night. Grand Admiral Vorath sat alone in the darkness. He thought about all the times the Concord had dismissed humanity, all the times they had laughed at human dreams, all the times they had called humans weak and foolish. He was not laughing now. Nobody in the galaxy would be laughing for a very long time. Throne Station was the heart of galactic power. It was a massive structure, built over 10,000 years by the combined effort of all 12 empires. Golden spires reached toward the stars. Crystal domes housed gardens from 100 worlds. The halls were filled with the most powerful beings in known space. And today, those powerful beings were afraid. Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors with a small group of her crew. She wore a simple uniform, dark blue with silver trim. She looked no older than 40, despite having lived for what felt like thousands of years. Behind her walked Commander Chen and Chief Engineer Sarah Park, both equally preserved by time. Guards from every empire lined the walls, their weapons ready. They watched the humans with a mix of fear and hatred. These small, soft creatures had somehow become something dangerous, and nobody knew how to feel about it. The doors to the high chamber opened. The room was enormous. Seats rose in circles around a central platform, filled with representatives from all 12 empires. At the highest level sat the leaders themselves. Grand Admiral Vorath for the Kelari, the Dravati Empress in her crystal form, the mechanical Vorn Patriarch, and 9 others, each ruling billions of lives across thousands of worlds. Elena walked to the center platform and stood alone. She was small compared to most of the aliens watching her, but she did not seem small. There was something in her eyes, a depth of knowledge and experience that made even the oldest beings uncomfortable. "Captain Vasquez," the Vorn Patriarch began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You stand before the Galactic Concord. You claim your ship survived the Void Rift. You claim to possess technology beyond our understanding. These are extraordinary claims. We require proof." Elena nodded calmly. "I understand. Before I show you proof, may I explain what happened to us?" The leaders looked at each other. The Dravati Empress waved a crystalline hand. "Speak." Elena took a breath and began. 200 years ago, we entered the Void Rift expecting to die. We were prepared for that. But death did not come. Instead, we found a doorway, a passage to somewhere else, somewhere outside normal space and time. The chamber was silent. Every being leaned forward to listen. Beyond the doorway, we found the remains of a civilization. We call them the Builders. They existed before this universe was born. They were ancient when the first stars formed. They had power beyond anything we can imagine. "Impossible," scoffed a Kelari general from the upper seats. "Nothing existed before the universe." Elena smiled slightly. "That is what we believe too. We were wrong. The Builders created technologies that could reshape reality itself. They could fold space, reverse time, create matter from nothing. They were gods by any definition. Then where are they now?" asked the Dravati Empress. Dead, Elena said simply. Destroyed by something even they could not stop. But before they died, they left their knowledge behind. They built libraries, schools, tests. They hoped that someday, a younger species would find them and learn. We found them. We learned. The chamber erupted in noise. Some leaders shouted questions. Others demanded silence. The Vorm Patriarch raised a mechanical arm for order. You claim to have learned from beings who existed before time, he said. You claim technology that breaks the laws of physics. Words are easy. Show us proof. Elena turned to Sarah Park, her chief engineer. Sarah, if you would. Sarah stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes and hands that had built impossible things. She raised her palm and closed her eyes. At first, nothing happened. Then the air above her hand began to shimmer. Light gathered. Particles spun. And suddenly, floating above her palm, was a tiny star. A real star. The size of a grape, burning with the heat of a sun, yet harmless to everyone in the room. The leaders gasped. Scientists in the audience shouted in disbelief. Guards raised their weapons. Sarah smiled and moved her other hand. The tiny star compressed, changed, and became a perfect flower made of pure light. Then the flower dissolved into a shower of golden sparks that faded into nothing. The silence that followed was complete. That was a demonstration of basic energy manipulation, Elena explained. We created a controlled fusion reaction, transformed it to structured light, and dispersed it safely. To us, this is simple. Like lighting a candle is simple to you. The Dravadi Empress spoke first, her voice shaking. How? How much power do you have? What are the limits of your abilities? We can build or destroy anything, Elena replied honestly. We can travel anywhere instantly. We can heal any wound. We can extend life indefinitely. The builders gave us knowledge that your civilization would need millions of years to develop naturally. Fear swept through the chamber like a cold wind. Every leader was calculating. Every mind was racing. If the humans could do all this, they could conquer the galaxy in days. They could destroy the Concord without effort. They could do whatever they wanted, and no one could stop them. The Kalari general, who had interrupted before, stood up, his scales flushed with anger. Then why are you here? If you have such power, why speak to us at all? Why not simply take what you want? Elena looked at him with something like pity. Because power without wisdom is destruction. The builders taught us that they could have ruled the universe, but they chose not to. They believed that life was meant to grow together, not dominate. We believe the same. She turned to address all the leaders. We did not return to conquer you. We returned to offer partnership, to share what we have learned. But I will not lie to you. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves. If you try to hurt our people, we will stop you. We seek friendship, but we will not accept slavery. The Dravadi Empress leaned forward, her crystal body pulsing with agitated light. You expect us to simply accept this? To trust that you will not use your power against us? You ask too much. I ask only what I would give in return, Elena said calmly. Trust must be earned. I understand that. So let me tell you why we really came back. It is not just to share technology. There is something else. Something important. What could be more important than the power you just demonstrated? Asked the Vorm Patriarch. Elena's expression became serious, sad, almost afraid. The builders did not die of old age. They did not destroy themselves. They were killed. Something found them. Something that moves between galaxies, consuming all intelligent life it discovers. It has destroyed civilizations across 100 universes. It is ancient beyond measure. And it is coming here. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. This was the silence of true fear. In 500 years, it will reach this galaxy. Nothing you have can stop it. Nothing we have alone can stop it. But together, with time to prepare, we might have a chance. That is why we came back. Not to rule you, not to frighten you, but to warn you. Elena looked up at the assembled leaders of the galaxy, beings who had spent centuries looking down on humanity. We need each other. The question is whether you are wise enough to accept that. The chamber remained silent as Elena walked back to join her crew. Behind her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat frozen. Their confidence shattered, their future uncertain. The universe had just become a much more dangerous place, and humanity was the only hope they had. The Concord did not take the news well. In the weeks following Captain Vasquez's demonstration, the galaxy fractured. Fear did strange things to powerful beings. Some wanted to embrace humanity's offer of partnership. Others wanted to destroy the humans before they became an even greater threat. Old alliances broke. New ones formed. And behind closed doors, dangerous plans were made. 6 empires joined together in secret. The Kellari, the Dravati, the Vorn, and 3 others who feared change more than they feared the unknown darkness Elena had warned about. They called themselves the Purity Accord, and they had one goal: eliminate humanity before humans could dominate the galaxy. Grand Admiral Varath did not join them. He had seen the Prometheus up close. He had looked into Captain Vasquez's eyes. He knew that attacking humans was foolish beyond measure, but his voice was ignored. The Purity Accord did not want wisdom. They wanted action. Their plan was simple: attack Earth's colony worlds simultaneously. 12 planets where billions of humans lived. The colonies had no advanced defenses, no builder technology, nothing but basic weapons and shields. The attack would be over in hours. Then humanity would be too weak to resist. Their precious Prometheus could not be everywhere at once. Or so they believed. The attack came on a quiet morning, on New Eden. The largest human colony, a young girl named Maya, was playing in her garden when the sky turned dark. She looked up and saw shapes blocking the sun. Ships, hundreds of them. Military vessels with weapons pointed at her city. Maya's mother grabbed her and pulled her inside. Alarms wailed across the colony. People ran for shelter. Fear spread like fire. Similar scenes played out across all 12 worlds. The Purity Accord had sent their mightiest fleets. Thousands of ships. Millions of soldiers. Enough firepower to burn every human colony to ash. The Dravati Empress watched from her flagship above New Eden. Her crystalline form pulsed with cold satisfaction. "Begin the bombardment," she ordered. "Leave nothing standing." Her weapons charged. Her fleet prepared to fire. And then the Prometheus appeared. It did not fly in from a distance. It simply existed where it had not been a moment before. 1 second, empty space. The next second, the human ship hung above New Eden like a guardian angel. But that was impossible. The Prometheus was one ship. There were 12 colony worlds under attack. It could not be everywhere. Except it was. Across the galaxy, above every single human colony, the Prometheus appeared simultaneously. Not copies. Not projections. The same ship in 12 places at once, bending the rules of reality like they were suggestions, instead of laws. The Dravati Empress stared at her sensors in disbelief. How is this possible? This breaks every law of physics. Before she could recover, Captain Vasquez's voice filled every communication channel in the Purity Accord fleet. "This is Captain Vasquez. You are attacking innocent civilians, families, children. We gave you a warning. We offered you friendship. You chose violence instead. That was a mistake. You cannot stop all of us. The Empress shouted back. "You are one ship against thousands." "You misunderstand," Elena replied calmly. "We do not need to stop you. We just need to move you." On every screen and every fleet, the Prometheus began to glow. Energy gathered around it, building to levels that no sensor could properly measure. The glow spread outward, reaching toward the attacking ships like gentle fingers of light dot, and then, in an instant, every single ship in the Purity Accord fleet vanished. They did not explode. They were not destroyed. They simply disappeared, as if they had never existed. The Dravati Empress found herself floating in complete darkness. No stars, no planets, no light except the glow of her own crystal body. Around her, the rest of her fleet drifted helplessly, their engines dead, their weapons useless. "Where are we?" she demanded. "What has happened?" A message arrived on her communication system. It was from the Prometheus. "You are currently located in the void between galaxies, approximately 2 million light years from the Milky Way. Your engines lack the fuel to return home. Your weapons have no targets. Your food supplies will last approximately 3 standard years." The Empress felt something she had not felt in centuries. True terror. The message continued. "We did not kill you. We do not wish to kill anyone. But we will not allow you to harm innocent people. Consider this time to think about your choices. If you decide you want peace, call for us. We will hear you. If you decide you want war, stay where you are. The universe is patient." Across the void, similar messages reached every admiral, every captain, every soldier in the Purity Accord fleet. Millions of beings, the greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled, stranded in the empty darkness between stars. Not one of them had been harmed. Back in the Milky Way, the colonies celebrated. Maya ran outside to see the Prometheus floating above her city, beautiful and strange and somehow comforting. Other children joined her, waving at the human ship that had saved them. Captain Vasquez broadcast one final message to the entire galaxy. "Today, 6 empires attacked our civilian worlds. They wanted to destroy us because they feared our power. We responded by removing their fleets from the battlefield. We took no lives. We caused no pain. But let this be clear to everyone watching. We will protect ourselves and our people. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But we will not be victims." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was gentle. "To those who want peace, we welcome you. To those who want friendship, we embrace you. And to those who want war, we ask you to reconsider. The universe is vast enough for all of us. We do not need to be enemies. But if you choose that path, know that we will not walk it with you." The message ended. On Throne Station, the remaining 6 empires watched in stunned silence. The Purity Accord, the greatest military alliance in galactic history, had been defeated in seconds without a single shot being fired. Their fleets were gone. Their leaders were stranded. Their power was broken. Grand Admiral Vorath, who had refused to join the attack, stood and addressed the chamber. "I warned them," he said quietly. "I told them that the humans were not what they used to be. They did not listen. Now their fleets float in the void, and their empires are defenseless." He looked at the other leaders, beings who had always seen humans as weak. The humans showed mercy today. They could have killed millions, but they chose not to. They could have conquered us all, but they chose not to. I do not know about you, but I have never seen such power used with such restraint. Perhaps we should listen to what they have to say. One by one, the remaining empires sent ambassadors to Earth, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The old order was dead. Something new was being born. And in the darkness between galaxies, the Dravati Empress sat alone on her throne, surrounded by her useless fleet, and finally began to understand what humanity had truly become. They were not Conquerors thought there was something far more terrifying. They were teachers, and the lesson had only just begun. 1 year had passed since the day humanity changed everything. The galaxy was different now. The old Concord was gone, replaced by something new. Something better. Representatives from every empire gathered on Earth, a planet that had once been considered primitive and unimportant. Now, it was the center of the greatest transformation in galactic history. Captain Elena Vasquez stood before the assembly in a great hall built specifically for this moment. Leaders who had once laughed at humanity now sat quietly, waiting for her to speak. Scientists from 100 worlds filled the galleries, eager to learn. Even former enemies were present, brought back from their exile between galaxies after agreeing to peace. The Dravati Empress sat in the front row. Her crystalline form was dimmer than before, her pride shattered by the humiliation of defeat. But she was here. She had chosen to learn instead of to hate. Elena looked out at the gathered beings and smiled. "Thank you all for coming," she began. 1 year ago, we returned from the Void Rift with knowledge that changed everything. We showed you what we had learned. We defended ourselves when we were attacked. But we never told you the complete truth about why we came back. Today, I will share that truth with you. The hall fell silent. The builders were not just scientists. They were guardians. For billions of years, they watched over the universe. They helped young species grow. They protected life wherever it emerged. They believed that consciousness was sacred, that every thinking being deserved a chance to reach its potential. Elena's expression grew serious. But they failed. Something found them. Something they could not understand or defeat. We call it the darkness, though it has no name. It comes from outside reality itself, from the spaces between universes. It does not think like we do. It does not want like we do. It simply consumes. Every galaxy it touches dies. Every civilization it finds is erased. Fear rippled through the audience. The same fear Elena had seen when she first warned the Concord. The builders fought the darkness for 100 million years. They used every weapon they could create, every technology, every trick. In the end, they lost. But before they died, they did something remarkable. They scattered their knowledge across the universe. They hid it in places like the Void Rift, hoping that someday another species would find it. A species young enough to grow, brave enough to explore, and humble enough to share what they learned. She paused and looked directly at the assembly. Humanity was not special. We were simply the ones who found it first. Any of you could have done the same if you had been willing to risk everything for the unknown. The builders did not choose us. We chose ourselves. And now, we choose all of you. Elena raised her hand, and behind her, a massive holographic display came to life. It showed the galaxy, beautiful and bright, surrounded by the vast darkness of empty space. And moving toward them, barely visible at the edge of the display, was something else. A shadow, a stain on reality itself. This is the darkness. It will reach our galaxy in approximately 500 years. That seems like a long time, but it is not. The builders had millions of years to prepare, and they still lost. We have only centuries. The shadow on the display pulsed, and everyone in the room felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. We cannot fight this alone. No one can. But together, with all our species working as one, we have a chance. The builders believed in unity. They believed that the only way to survive was to stand together. That is why we are here today. Elena stepped back from the display. We are offering you everything we learned from the builders. Every technology. Every secret. Every piece of knowledge that kept them alive for billions of years. We will share it freely, without conditions, without asking for anything in return. Not because we are generous, but because we understand something important. She looked at the Dravati Empress, at Grand Admiral Varth, at all the beings who had once considered humanity beneath notice. If any of us die, we all die. There is no victory in the destruction of our neighbors. There is no safety in hoarding power. The only way forward is together. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. Then, slowly, Grand Admiral Varth stood. His scales were gray with age now, but his eyes were bright with something new. Hope. I spent my entire life believing that power meant domination. That strength meant crushing those weaker than yourself. The humans have shown me a different way. A harder way, perhaps, but a better one. He turned to the other leaders. I am old. I will not live to see the darkness arrive. But my children will. My grandchildren will. And I want them to live in a galaxy that fights together instead of against itself. He looked at Captain Vasquez. The Kelari Empire accepts your offer. We will work with humanity. We will learn. We will grow. One by one, other leaders stood. The Vorm Patriarch. The representatives of the neutral empires. Even, after a long hesitation, the Dravati Empress herself. We accept, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Not because we forgive what was done to us. Not because we have forgotten our pride. But because we understand now that there are things more important than pride. More important than revenge. More important than power. Elena felt tears form in her eyes. After everything she had seen, everything she had experienced, this moment was worth it all. Then let us begin, she said simply. In the months that followed, science stations bloomed across the galaxy. Knowledge flowed like water. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years worked side by side, solving problems that none of them could have solved alone. New technologies emerged. New medicines. New ways of thinking. The galaxy was being transformed, and for the first time in its long history, the transformation was happening peacefully. 10 years passed. Then 20. Then 50. Captain Elena Vasquez still walked the corridors of the Prometheus, unchanged by time, sustained by builder technology that kept her alive as long as she was needed. Her crew had become legends, teachers to billions, guides to a galaxy learning to be better than it had ever been. On a quiet evening, Elena stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. A young officer approached her. He was not human. He was Kelari, one of the first of his species to join the Prometheus crew. His name was Vorath the Younger, grandson of the Grand Admiral who had first accepted humanity's offer. Captain, he said respectfully, the latest reports from the observation stations. The darkness is still approaching. Right on schedule, Elena nodded. I know. We always knew it would come. Do you think we will be ready? She turned to look at him. Look at him. This young Kelari who served on a human ship, who had friends from a dozen different species, who had grown up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal and hatred was strange. Honestly, Elena said, I do not know. The builders could not stop the darkness. We may not be able to either. But I know something they did not know. What is that, Captain? Elena smiled. They faced the darkness alone. They were one species, powerful but isolated. We are different. We are all the species of this galaxy, working together, learning together, growing together. Maybe that will not be enough. But maybe, just maybe, it will be exactly what we need. She looked back at the stars, at the galaxy she had helped transform. The builders left us their knowledge. But the real inheritance was not technology. It was a lesson. Life is stronger when it works together. Fear is weaker when it is faced with unity. And hope, shared among billions of hearts, can survive anything. Young Vorath stood beside her in comfortable silence. Outside, the galaxy turned slowly, filled with light and life and the promise of tomorrow. And in the dark between galaxies, the ancient darkness moved closer. But for the first time in a billion years, it was approaching not a single frightened civilization, but a united galaxy prepared to stand together. Whatever happened next, they would face it as one. The missing Earthship had come home, and it had brought hope with it.